My passion for ministry has always been captured by a promise in John chapter 15, where Jesus talks to his disciples and he says, look, if you abide in me, you bear much fruit. But then he also says, if you're already abiding fruit, to bear more fruit, the Father has to prune it. And then it ends in verse 11 by saying that if you abide by these things and live out of these principles, Jesus says, I'm writing these things to you so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be made full. Now, when I think about ministry, that's my passion. More fruit with more joy. That causes my wife, my kids, my family to be healthy, where I can be effective for the kingdom of God, but also have a life at the end of the day. That passion to try to always serve Christ for greater fruitfulness, but yet with a life to the glory of God and the good of my family is what's driven me through 35 plus years of pastoral ministry. My personal journey goes back about 35 years, as I've had the privilege of serving in several churches as a senior pastor, from a church plant in southwestern Ohio in a university community to a mid-sized church in Central California, and then finally 15 years serving as the senior pastor of a large 5,000 member church in Southern California. While serving in the Fullerton Church, God opened the opportunity for me to write the book, How to Lead and Still Have a Life. The book captures my personal story and journey and philosophy of ministry. It's a summary of 8 simple biblical principles designed to help busy leaders accomplish more in less time. God, by His grace, helped me see that this was the secret that many pastors were never taught. Over the years, I've had the chance to teach this in various denominational gatherings and settings with pastors, and to help them discover the joy of leading like Jesus from these core biblical principles. But it really became exciting in 2005 when I made my first trip to Africa. We're invited by a large relief agency, World Relief, to come and share some of these principles with their staff and some pastors in the nation of Rwanda. Rwanda, post-genocide, was a nation in great pain, tremendous needs. Churches were thriving and growing because God was showing up and the gospel was having an impact in the life of this country. But as those churches grew, the needs of Rwanda were overwhelming to the average pastor. Let me paint a picture for you of the average pastor in Africa. Picture having to farm and provide for your family. Picture a church overrun by widows and orphans, problems such as AIDS, clean water, child survival training desperately needed.
I have a very bad experience where my pastor died because of too much stress. When the church was growing so fast, so big, and she couldn't cope with all this.
The needs of the community and the needs of the church were overwhelming its pastors. World Relief invited us to test drive some of this leadership training for a small group of pastors to see if perhaps God could take these biblical principles and transfer them into an entirely different culture in Africa and speak into the lives of these dear servants of God. The response shocked me and was overwhelming.
Most of our pastors, and in particular for Pentecostal churches, they don't know the ABC of leadership.
People like us who just come to ministry out of passion and calling with no prior training, this is so thrilling.
Thank you so much.
And it reminded me that God's truth is real and relevant in every culture around the planet. The challenge was, how do you take these biblical principles and transfer them into the language and the culture and address the worldview needs of a very different culture outside of the West. With the help of World Relief, we gathered 8 key African leaders, and we were able to glean from them stories and illustrations of how to address these biblical truths and apply them to the African context. The result was about a 2-year project of adapting How to Lead and Still Have a Life for more of a global audience. We've taught it several times and over about a 2-year period developed a curriculum for African pastors designed to introduce them to the principles of leadership modeled by Jesus and taught in the Scriptures. To help contextualize the material, we tell stories gleaned from their everyday life in Africa. Stories of too many goats on too many ropes pulling their owners in different directions. Stories of crocodiles and monkeys, swamps and rivers. Stories of real life among the real people in this great continent.
Some goats wanted to go to the grass. Other goats just want to sit down.
The next step was to get it into their language. In Rwanda, that's Kinyarwanda. We go to Tanzania at the invitation of another group of pastors representing about 20 to 30 denominations. In that culture, it's Swahili. And by God's grace, we're able to translate the material into Swahili, into Kinyarwanda. We went to Congo. And in Congo, the need is African French. So in Congolese French, we have the material now published and available. Currently, the material is being translated into several other African languages for use around the continent. At the invitation of the ECC, the Evangelical Church of Congo, we've been able to enter into the DR Congo and train representatives of 91 denominations centered in the city of Kinshasa. As we began to do the leadership training in these different countries, here's what we realized. We need to start by training pastors to be healthy. But healthy pastors need healthy families. And there are family issues in marriage and parenting in the midst of ministry that my wife and I have a passion for that was also needed. So God has been introducing opportunities for us to not only train pastors to be healthy, but for pastors' wives and their families to be healthy, because healthy pastors with healthy families are the secret to really beginning to build healthy churches that can multiply the ministries needed to really make a difference for Christ in the midst of Africa.
Sometimes we are becoming more busy instead of mobilize others to take the responsibility, and so that we can specialize with where our strength is.
Once pastors begin to learn how to lead and have a life, how to mobilize others into ministry, then their ministry potential expands dramatically. And healthy ministries begin to grow out of their churches. I saw an illustration of this firsthand in Kinshasa, Congo. An exciting ministry that we are partnered with now called Tabatha Centers developed a great approach to reaching out into the neighborhoods through the churches to try to rescue young women of this huge city of 12 million people, where prostitution is often the only hope for a young woman to provide for herself and her child. They go into the communities, they invite these women to come and receive three things: a job skill, English lessons, and the person of Jesus Christ and the good news of the gospel. It's a powerful combination that is being used by God, and the goal is to plant 1,000 of these centers in the city of Kinshasa to be transforming lives and helping transform the city. So how can these type Tabatha Centers multiply in Kinshasa? The secret is it's got to be done in partnership with the Congolese church to host a Tabatha Center. But if pastors don't understand how to lead like Jesus, they do not have the capacity to branch out into this type of transformational ministry. One of the great side benefits from being involved in leadership training in Africa is suddenly you get exposed to all kinds of other ministry opportunities and needs. In Rwanda, we've seen churches get involved in providing clean water projects, AIDS prevention projects, child survival training, seeking to reach unreached people groups throughout the cities of Tanzania and working with tribal peoples in the north part of the country. In Congo, we've seen churches get involved with Tabatha Centers and other ministries toward the poor. Leadership training is simply the gateway to increased ministry by more and more members of your church. And the other end result is people come back transformed. We go there to help them, and in reality, I always come back a better man, a better pastor, and my people come back energized and excited about their role in trying to help reach the world. In Congo alone, the ECC is inviting us to do more training. They represent 91 denominations, 25 million church members in that one great country in the heart of Africa. In Rwanda, World Relief, representing 20 to 30 denominational groups, is inviting us back. One denomination alone with 2,000 churches in Rwanda would love for us to come and do more in-depth training with their trainers of trainers to multiply this into the life of their church. In Tanzania, we've been to Dar es Salaam, we've been to Mwanza in the north, and now there's invitations to come to other cities to do more training for more pastors with a special focus on training trainers of trainers.
We are dealing with youth leaders, young leaders who are passionate with youth ministry. We are training them and then they go to train others. That's what we are doing.
One global ministry that's involved in 29 different African countries has asked if we would help them transfer this training into the language and to launch training throughout Africa in 29 countries. So the opportunities are huge.
We do believe we're going to take this message, not to stay with it here, but we're going to take it in the different provinces. God bless you, and we love you. We want you to come back again.
You know, I've seen the impact this can have in Africa, but I've also seen the impact it has on my own life as it shapes my heart and develops my love for Christ in this world that He loves. I've also seen the impact it's had on our church and the people that go and the people that pray and the people that give. It captures their heart and it's transforming us into a more generous, Christ-centered, global-minded body of believers. I'd love to see you and your church experience that same transformation.